Welcome to this How Do I video on designing pages for use on all devices in Microsoft Dynamics NAV 2016. In this video, we will prepare a role center page, a list page, and a card page for use across multiple form factors. Let's call this Universal Page Design. Traditionally, when designing or customizing pages, we would only need to think about designing for desktop users having large screens. But as of Dynamics NAV 2016, we support a broad range of devices from smartphones to tablets to desktops. On each of those, we offer a user experience which is tailored to that device. Hence, there are a number of differences and of course limitations across the different clients which come as a natural result of the screen size or the input method on each of these devices. Sometimes, users in a particular role will only use one device throughout their entire workday, such as a service technician who simply needs to punch in work hours on their phone. Designing pages for such roles is easy, as we only need to think of designing for one form factor. However, today it is not uncommon to hear about users who have their office desktop, maybe a notebook they travel around with to get more work done at home or on the go. And they may also bring along their personal tablet or phone. So designing for this is a little bit trickier, and that's what we're going to focus on in this video. If a user is accessing Dynamics NAV with the same credentials on all devices, keep in mind that that user is assigned a profile or a role center, and hence signing into Dynamics NAV on every device will start in the same role center. So how do we design for that? How do we design a page so that it looks great and behaves well on phones, tablets, and desktops? What are the new things which we as developers need to think about to make sure a page is designed to be truly universal? We will get there in a few easy steps. First, we will start with taking a look at how the pages render across the different HTML-based clients. Next, let's consider some of the natural differences and limitations between these clients and how we can design around them. And finally, there's a few interesting points we should consider and a few best practices to apply to our page design. So let's start by using some standard pages as an example. These pages were not designed for use across devices, so this gives us a good opportunity to understand what it would take to transform them into universal pages. If I switch to my browser, here you can see I've got my order processor role center in the web client. Let's do the same for the tablet client and the phone client. I'll first copy the web client URL, copying the HTTPS, server name, and the instance name. I'll start a new browser window and simply add tablet.aspx at the end of that. That gives me my tablet client. I'll repeat the process now for the phone client, this time using phone.aspx. Next, I'll just resize the browser windows to simulate these devices. You can do this more precisely using the F12 developer tools, which gives you various options for simulating common device sizes. Now you may have noticed that I've launched all three using Internet Explorer's in-private browsing option. Opening up multiple clients in the same browser shares a session between them. In other words, it reuses the session which was created first in that browser. In my case, this was the web client session. And this has some consequences of showing the right UI, but if you have any code which relies on the current client type, that will not function correctly because it believes it is still the web client session. So by using in private, I've isolated the three clients and can now work effectively. And I recommend you do this no matter which browser you're using. And now we're all set up to simulate my pages across different devices. In this step, we will take a look at what makes these clients different by looking at a few practical examples. Let's line them up side by side. Clearly, there are differences between each of them. If we take the cues and action tiles as our first example, note how on the web client, these are shown alongside all the other parts and are shown in the top left corner, giving them prominence. The same page on the tablet now also gives prominence to the cues by placing them on the blue app bar area. And finally on the phone, which has the least available screen area, they are shown alone on the first screen, while all other parts can be reached with a swipe or a click. Let's take a look at lists now. On the web client, I'm going to navigate to the customer list. Here, records are shown as slim rows with an accompanying fact box based on the currently selected row. Let's see what the same list looks like on the tablet. Space is a bit more limited here, so fact boxes do not show up. And finally, the same thing on the phone. The phone having the most limited screen area not only results in fact boxes being hidden, but the records are also rendered in a more compressed form known as bricks. As the device size decreases, the user experience gets simpler and more limiting. As we just saw, lists transform from the centerpiece, surrounded by various peripherals such as fact boxes, all the way down to bricks, which simply enable you to drill down to the detailed information. This is why simplicity is really key on smaller devices where you don't have enough space to show too many controls and too much complexity, which will get in the way of the user being productive or effective. But there are ways around some of these differences, such as making sure that the same fact box is also available on the card page so that users can find those facts after they've tapped on the brick on the phone. As a developer, it's important to be aware of these contrasts between clients when designing pages for all devices. And you can find a detailed list, including suggested approaches, on the differences and limitations page on MSDN. In our final step, let's apply a few best practices to our page design and our code. I've just added the context list place to my navigation pane, but when I view that same page on the phone, I don't get the desired fields that I want to show up on the bricks. Now I can specify what is shown on the bricks on the phone client by specifying a special field group on the contact table. Now here you can see the drop-down field group has already been created, and this is also a special field group which selects the set of fields which will be shown in drop-downs across the client. Now I can create a similar field group also with a special name called brick, and in this field group I can specify up to 7 fields which I want to show up on that brick. In my case, I'd like the country region code, I'd like the customer name to show, and also the phone number. The order of these fields is important because it determines exactly where they will be placed on the brick as well as their styling. So let's compile the changes and see how this changes. As you can see, the layout is already quite different. Because I selected the country region code to be the first field, it is shown on top of the second field in a slightly paler color. The phone number is now shown on the right as well. So you can achieve the desired effect by simply playing around with the order of the fields inside this field group. And you can read more about how fields are laid out on this MSDN article about bricks. Another best practice is to set the scope property on your actions. Let's take a look at the actions defined on the context list. We have a number of actions inside the Home tab in the ribbon. Some of these actions take effect only on the currently selected row, such as the new sales quote action. Other actions, such as the contact company summary, apply to the entire set of records. This can be problematic on the mobile clients where too many actions result in clutter, and it's also problematic because the smaller the device, the less we have a concept of a currently selected row. So as a developer, I can now differentiate actions using the scope property in the Dynamics NAV development environment. And this instructs the NAV clients to show the action in the right place at the right time. So let's see what happens once I set the scope property to repeater instead of page on the new sales quote action. So in the web client, it will still show here up top in the ribbon, which is fine because that's where I'm used to finding it. But now it also shows up when you click on the options for the individual row. Let's see the same thing on the tablet. If I look at my list of page actions, you'll notice that new sales quote is not available in the list of actions here because it has been moved down to the set of options on the individual rows. And finally, on the phone, again, we do not have the new sales quote action in the action pane for this page. And by doing this, we've hidden it away, keeping things a lot more simpler on the phone. The user will of course be forced to drill down into the particular contact and then initiate a new sales quote from there. So let's summarize the steps we went through. First, we looked at how each of the phone, tablet, and web clients render in the browser. We also learned a trick to keeping them isolated by starting each in private browsing. Next, we considered some of the natural differences and limitations between these clients. And finally, we applied a few best practices for pages used across devices. For more information related to the Dynamics NAV web client or the Dynamics NAV Universal app, check out the Get Ready site. Thanks for watching.